You know, there's a popular saying that's been all over social media lately. If you know, you know. It's a phrase that fits the Ricoh GR system perfectly. In the world of photography, there are a few rare cameras that everybody seems to agree on, and the Ricoh GR2 and GR3 are definitely two of them. They punched well above their weight, earning a cult following among street photographers and travel photographers. The GR3 launched 7 years ago, but it's been in such high demand that the price has actually gone up over the years. How many cameras can you say that about? Fast forward to 2025 and Ricoh's latest camera, the GR4, has finally arrived. Just like the GR3 was a refinement to the GR2, the 4 is an evolution of its predecessor, not a drastic revolution. This shouldn't be a surprise to existing GR users. After all, there's a strong element of if it ain't broke, don't fix it to the GR lineup. But that said, a lot has changed in the last 7 years when it comes to technology. So what is new with the GR4? Is there enough here to justify an upgrade, and can this camera win over a new generation of street and travel photographers? Well, let's find out. My name is Matty, this is the Ricoh GR4, and you're watching Amateur Photographer. Okay, let's kick off by talking about resolution. Yes, the GR4 has an all-new APS-C sensor, but the resolution increase is incremental, going from 24 megapixels on the GR3 to 25.7 megapixels on the GR4. It's not a huge jump, but it gives you a max file size of 6192 by 4128 pixels, and that's more than enough for A3 prints or for cropping in on your images for social media use. In fact, why don't we take a look at a gallery of images I shot with the GR4 right now. You know, at first glance, the GR4 looks a lot like the GR3. It's got the same fixed 28mm equivalent focal length, albeit with a slightly different lens construction, and an aperture range of f2.8 to f16. Take a look at the shape, and this is like any of the GR cameras. They're designed for one-handed use, which is a huge plus for street photographers who need to capture fleeting moments on the go. So not too much difference from first glance, but internally there are some big changes. The GR3 offered a 3-axis IBIS system, but the GR4 upgrades this to a 5-axis system. In the field this works incredibly well, especially when you're shooting in low light and using slow shutter speeds. You know, the AF seems to work a lot faster too, and I particularly like the response of the face detection technology, which will of course help when people are in the scene. And one of the biggest quality of life improvements, the GR4 has a massive 53 gigabytes of internal storage, a huge jump from the GR3's meager 2 gigabytes. This means you'll have a backup even if you forget your memory card. And speaking of memory cards, the GR4 switches to a micro SD card instead of the full-size SD found on the GR3 and GR2 cameras. This might have been a trade-off to make room for a larger battery which is found in the GR4, which should help with one of the most common complaints about the GR system. I have to say, the camera does feel a lot more efficient, and after a morning of picture taking, I headed into a cafe to plug in the camera into a power bank, and you know what? It was still on 3 bars of power, so I didn't even need to charge it. If you do need to add some juice, you can pair it with a power bank via the USB port and all is good. I mean, come on, look. While the new battery does increase capacity, it's still a very small compact camera. You're never going to get the same battery life as you would from a traditional mirrorless camera, but then again it's likely you won't use this camera in the same fashion either. You know, the 28mm equivalent focal length is tried and tested. It's a great sweet spot for a compact camera like this. But if you do want to mix things up, you can also use the in-camera crop feature to get an effective 35mm or 50mm focal length. But remember, you will be losing some resolution, but this shouldn't be an issue if you're sharing your images to social media, as there'll still be plenty of megabytes to edit with. The f2.8 maximum aperture is still a huge benefit to this sort of camera and produces fairly decent bokeh with a fairly clean, circular feel to it. It also gives you fast shutter speeds in low light and a beautifully shallow depth of field. Also still present is a macro mode that will allow you to focus on subjects as close as 6 centimeters away, so great for filling the frame with smaller subjects. The built-in 2-stop ND filter is also still present on the GR4. Look, on a sunny day it won't drastically affect your shutter speed, but in the city where buildings can create a lot of shade, it can be just enough to introduce blur and motion into your frame. This feature works incredibly well with the new 5-axis IBIS system, allowing you to hand-hold the camera while still getting that motion blur effect into your frame. You can also get creative with the image control options. That's Ricoh's name for picture styles or art filters. You get choices like vivid, various monotone profiles, negative film, and even an HDR tone effect. Remember, you can shoot JPEG and RAW files at the same time, which is a good idea as you'll have the image control effects on the JPEG and the RAW file as a backup in case you don't like the effect and want to try something different once you're back at the computer. Okay, time to have a look at some more images I captured with the GR4. I'm consistently impressed with the image quality from these tiny GR cameras, and the new GR4 is no different. The raw.dng files give you so much tonal data to work with. You can easily rescue skies and boost shadows in software like Lightroom, and because the files are that universal .dng format, you won't have to wait for any updates to Lightroom to get working with the files. I'd say digital noise is well controlled, and the GR4 has a higher native ISO ceiling than its predecessor, going up to ISO 204/800. Although, look, it's likely you're never going to use it at that higher level. The GR4 also has a movie mode offering full HD at up to 60p, and here are a few example clips. But let's be honest, this is a camera for capturing stills, not for making movies. Do you know what? The GR4, just like all the other models before it, is a go-anywhere camera. It's the kind of camera you can pop into your pocket and take out with you every single day. The menu system is simple and well laid out, so even if you've never used the GR camera before, you'll be up and running in no time. And that's the essence of the GR4. It has all the right features without being overwhelmed with things that will slow you down. This less is more approach helps you stay in the moment and focus on the art of picture taking. In my opinion, the GR4 is essentially a more efficient GR3 with a quicker startup, a faster autofocus system, enhanced IBIS, and of course that slightly higher resolution. This is an excellent option for when you want to break from the heavier camera, body and lens combo. The compact black design is incredibly discreet, and to most people it looks just like you're taking a quick snap with your smartphone when in reality you're making the most of that fantastic APS-C sensor. So are there any downsides? After 7 years, some people will have hoped for a bigger jump in resolution, but the fact that the camera produces such great image quality does make up for that. The biggest thing for me though is probably that fixed 3-inch touch sensitive LCD. It's actually quite rare to find a camera without a tilting or vari-angle screen these days, and you grow quite accustomed to using them in day-to-day photography. While it does help keep the camera's size down, this thing tips the scales at just 262 grams, I probably would have been happier to accept a slightly bigger form factor if it meant having a tilting LCD. Overall though, the Ricoh GR4 builds on the heritage of its predecessors with some meaningful internal upgrades. It's a camera that empowers you to capture great moments without getting in your way. It's a worthy successor and in my eyes, a true contender for the compact camera crown. But what do you think about the GR4? Let us know in the comments section, and thanks for watching.